Hey up everybody and Happy New Year. Well, I thought I'd do a short video just to say Happy New Year and to thank all the people who gave me Christmas wishes in comments. They were greatly appreciated. So I hope you all had a good Christmas and we're all going to hope we can look forward to a less dangerous 2021, shall we say, what with vaccines and things like that. Anyway, here I am with my 1960s collection from previous years, which you've seen me build. So I thought, as well as wishing you a Happy New Year, I'd better show you what we've got planned for 2021. So we need to move, because the first thing is a little bit of a surprise. Now, as far as projects go, of course, we haven't actually got the C15 out of the way yet, but that can't be more than a couple of weeks away, I don't think. So what I'm planning for this year are two projects. We certainly get one done and hopefully we'll get both of them, but the second one might trail over into the next year, 2022, because they're both going to be pretty comprehensive builds, and they're both going to be trials bikes. Now, one is because Charlie Prescott's been pestering me about this one for a while, and the other one because it's something that I want to do, and I'll explain why shortly. Right, first of all, I mentioned Charlie Prescott. Charlie Prescott runs the BSA Auto website, which I've mentioned, and which, if you haven't looked, is a really excellent website. Lots of stuff on it, and unlike when I was keeping my website going, Charlie's constantly adding stuff to it, so it's well worth going back and forwards to. I've actually had to write some notes here, Charlie, and I'm only going to précis the history. So, Otter BSA. The Otter BSA is an Otter frame, and it's had a couple of different iterations, and I think the people who make them now, Faber, are up to about Mark III. But they started off, see, that's what my little notes are for, and if you want a really full history of the bikes, go to Charlie's website. So, just before BSA sort of closed their competition shop, I suppose, there was a gentleman by the name of Pat Slynn who worked there, and he worked alongside Sammy Miller, and Pat Slynn was actually a BSA employee, Sammy Miller of course Ariel, and he looked at what Sammy was doing to his Ariel and thought, you know, a nice lightweight frame would be good for the C15, so he started working on one. And there's also a fella crops up in this called Scott Ellis, who was a BSA Works rider, and his dad worked with Pat Slynn. And anyway, he also came up with, I'm not completely clear on this, I just read it all again at lunchtime, Charlie, wrote some things down, so if it's not right, go to the website. Anyway, I'm waffling again. So, where am I? So Scott Ellis had built this frame, oiling frame one, and it was a lot lighter and a little bit more ground clearance and better steering and everything. Then that went to a chap called Harry Foster. Was it Harry? Yeah. And he actually did the Otter frames. And he built those, and then Sammy Miller got involved, and Charlie builds a version of this frame. But anyway, I'm going to show you some pictures of the frame and the finished bikes. Well, not only did they build these frames for the BSA singles, but also for Tiger Cubs and for this Triumph Twins. Now this is a 500 because 350s are like hen's teeth here in the US. Also this one, which I bought in Rhode Island, I bought it I think in February, and it was just as all the restrictions came in, and in fact in the US Rhode Island was almost going to patrol their borders because New York was the worst place and we have a state line with Rhode Island. So anyway, I couldn't go and get it, so I didn't get it until just a few weeks ago actually. So this is a 500, it's a Daytona. Now here the Daytona is a T100R. Memory serves me right, it was a T100T at home. But anyway, so it's a sporty one, which I don't really want. So I've been able to get a manifold so we can go single carb. I'm also going to change the pistons. Now, Don Morley in his book mentioned he built a couple of Triumph 500 engines with, I think it was Kawasaki KZ 1000 pistons, which were just the right size and everything, and gave them a nice low compression. So we're going to do that and whatever else we need. So that is project number one. We are going to build an Otter Triumph twin. The second project is further along here, so let me move you along a little bit. Before we start, because somebody will pick up on this, it's just struck me, New York State doesn't, I don't think, have a state line with Rhode Island. I'm almost sure I went through a little bit of Massachusetts. I remember being on the Massachusetts Turnpike, but that's immaterial. Anyway, what we've got here are the remains of all the Royal Enfield stuff I bought. Now, I've been out and ridden the Bullet a few times, and it's a lot of fun, but it's long, and it's a little bit of a handful. Actually, as I ride it more, it gets better, and as I say, it is fun to ride, particularly in my rocky gullies and things. But because I have another complete engine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build another bike, engine gearbox, I should say. Only this time I'm going to build a frame for it, and the frame is going to be a sort of modified Otter frame, because when we build the Otter frame, and as you saw from the photographs you've just been looking at, it's a spine type frame. What I'm not going to do actually is make it an oil bearing frame. I don't like oil bearing frames. I honestly don't see the benefit of them. You know, an alloy oil tank weighs literally ounces, and you're putting weight higher up in the frame, and you don't know what's inside them. I mean, cleaning an oil tank out is easy, but anyway, I really don't like them. I've always thought it was a bit of a fashion more than anything else. Maybe in road racing they're good, but you know, if it's supposed to have more surface area because of the tube to cool, well, a lot of it's tucked up above the engine and whatever. So let me show you the Royal Enfield gearbox, because that is the crux of the new build and its frame design. So this is the Enfield gearbox. Although in truth, of course, it's not actually Enfield. They were built by Albion, and Albion built the boxes for Villiers as well, and they're crap. Well, this one anyway, it's the weak point of certainly the Enfield Bullet Trials bike. Now you may remember my two engines and gearboxes came out of the Pashley three-wheeler. So on the back of the gearbox, this bulge is where the jack shaft is to give it reverse gear. So it has one reverse and three forwards. So basically what it is first gear is now reverse, because the two pinions on the main and the lay shaft don't mesh. They mesh with this when you go into first gear, so it changes the direction of this. So on the Bullet I have, I merely took this jack shaft and pinion out and put a plug in there, and 3 gears, believe me, is ample. It's great to ride just with 3 gears. But you see there's a big bulge. Now, as I mentioned, the problem with the Enfield, I don't know how they got them shorter. Mine is long. But one of the reasons is, unlike most gearboxes, the gear change is sort of up here in the corner. So there's this big bulge. Instead of just being that shape, with just, as you saw with the C15 for instance, where everything is in here, the gear change shaft is here and the cam plate is there and the sliders. This goes through a really convoluted mechanism to up here. The gear change is here, but it moves a further mechanism up here, which then moves this to change gear. So of course, this means, hang on, let me make sure you're still in view. Yep, just about. This means that you can't get the swinging arm up behind the gearbox. That's as close as you can get it. Now that's adding 3 inches onto the length, almost. So, because the Otter frame has a single down tube at the back, a seat pillar if you like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this bulge off and then weld the plate in here, so we won't be taking any strength out of the casting. And then this gearbox bolts onto the back of the engine on 4 long studs that come through here. So I'm going to make some slightly longer studs, and what is going to happen is the down tube of the frame, the seat pillar, is going to bolt to the back of this and have the swinging arm mounted in there. So there's enough room, I can get out this way, and here I've just got to come at a little bit of an angle. I'm going to be able to pull it in, as I say, nearly 3 inches. Now, with building the frame completely, I can get the fork angle the way I want it, and I think it'll make it a much nicer bike to ride. I'll still have that great 350 bullet engine, but I'll have a little bit better frame in the way of, it'll be slightly lighter, it'll be a lot thinner at the back because the rear suspension units on the Enfield are really wide apart. And now we'll have some nice forks in it, and this one will put probably alloy hubs in to try and keep the weight down. So anyway, that's the second project. The first one is going to be the Otter Triumph Twin. So as I was saying, have a good new year, and we'll look forward in a couple of weeks to getting started with this. Actually, there'll be one episode before we even start the Otter Triumph, because I want to finish building the frame jig that I'm working on, so you'll get to see that. So until then, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.